What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot to really talk to you about today, guys, so we're going to go ahead and dive right into this just as quickly as we can for you. So let's go ahead and start with the latest update on Beryl. Beryl is currently over Texas. It made landfall earlier this morning as a Category 1 hurricane, officially with winds of 80 miles per hour. However, I do believe that based off of recon analysis, as well as confirmed wind reports, that the NHC in the postseason is going to reanalyze that as potentially a high-end Category 1 hurricane as it approached Texas. So the saga of Beryl is ending pretty soon. It's going to be staying over the United States for the next couple of days before dissipating, but it's going to be bringing a lot of impacts to a lot of areas. There's actually a ton of tornado warnings in effect for parts of Louisiana due to tropical tornadoes, including a PDS warning at the time of recording this. So if you are in a tornado warning from this system, seek shelter immediately. Also, there is a significant flood risk in association with this, so we need to pay very close attention to that as this moves further inland. But here's the situation that we have as of right now. It currently has maximum sustained winds of 60 miles per hour, pressure of 987 millibars, flash flooding and gusty winds continues over eastern Texas. Use caution after the storm as deadly hazards remain, including downed power lines, carbon monoxide poisoning from improper generator use. So we're going to have to pay attention to that as of right now to keep an eye on it right there. We've had a lot of confirmed wind reports and all that stuff. We had storm surge of up to 3 to 5 feet across a lot of areas as of right now, so we're going to have to keep an eye on it right here and right then. It was a very interesting storm to make landfall last night, so we'll have to pay attention to it. Heavy rainfall is the biggest threat right here. Matter of fact, we can go ahead and show you the graphics right here for rainfall potential, and we're seeing 4 to 6 and 2 to 4 inches of rainfall across much of the region, pretty much spanning from northeast Texas all the way to Detroit, which is pretty crazy to think about, and this is something you absolutely need to take seriously going forward. If you're tuning in from the Midwest, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan right here. But in the meantime, we're also going to be paying attention to some other upcoming tropical threats and when they may be persisting as we continue to take a look at. But before we go ahead and do that, let's go ahead and kind of give you an overview of what we're looking at in the Atlantic Ocean right there. So what we're noticing right here are two things right there. Number one, there was a huge Sahara air layer that surged further south into the main development region that closed off development just after Beryl crossed into the Lesser Antilles and intensified into a Category 5 hurricane right after that in the Eastern Caribbean as it began to approach Jamaica. That's what we have going on. The Sahara air layer is still there. However, there are signs showing up here and there that it is weakening across much of the Atlantic basin. Here's what's going on. We're seeing a lot more moist air coming off of the coast of Africa due to monsoon season really starting to ramp up in the region over there, and we're also looking at an increased activity from the Intertropical Convergence Zone, or ITCZ, and that is now north of the equator, as it typically is in the month of June and July. It finally started getting its act together around 8 degrees north. So that right there is going to help moisten up the main development region for possible development in the next little while or so. I was talking to some of my guys at Storms United. We're looking at a potential ensemble run by a couple of models where a few ensembles are picking up a few things here and there in the main development region starting in the next 10 days or so. Keep in mind, we have to take it with a grain of salt. I know Beryl just happened and we all got ahead of ourselves and we all thought it was going to explode and intensify again because it just kind of screwed up everything that was going on before that, but we can't get ahead of ourselves with this time. We're kind of going to be entering a quiet phase of the tropical Atlantic, at least for the next couple of weeks or so. But as we get into late July and early August, we got to pay attention to three key components going forward at this current point in time. First one we're going to have to pay attention to is the global sea temperatures. I know I keep saying this like a broken record, but the global sea surface temperatures across the board from Beryl, outside of maybe Texas, which will the returns will come in a couple of days late, in that region right there with the because Beryl was moving a lot slower, and that definitely would help cool the sea surface temperatures a lot more than it did in the Caribbean. But we still got to watch these sea surface temperatures across the main development region, across the Caribbean, and across the Atlantic just generally across the Atlantic basin altogether, because what we're noticing is we're seeing a massive flare up of 30 plus degrees Celsius waters across much of the Gulf Coast and across much of the Gulf of Mexico over here in the last couple of weeks or so. We're starting to see a huge resurgence of that, and I fully expect that to persist as we get into the later parts of July and as we get into August over here. And I also fully expect that the Caribbean Sea will go from 29 to 30 to potentially up to 32 degrees Celsius waters across much of the region over there as we continue to see the ocean heat content go up and as we continue to see these waters continue to rise. Remember, we still have a couple of months ahead before we reach peak sea surface temperatures. We did see a bit of a stagnation for a brief period. This can be attributed to Beryl right here, as what hurricanes typically do is they cool the waters down. Beryl was moving too fast to make that much of an impact, but it did stall the warming of the waters, whereas last year we didn't really have much activity in July outside of like the subtropics and all that stuff. So we just continue to see just a rapid rising of the sea surface temperatures. We're still going to see that down the road, and we're still going to see record-breaking sea surface temperatures across a lot of regions over here, especially in the Gulf of Mexico and northwestern Caribbean Sea. But as of right now, it definitely did have a little bit of an effect cooling down the waters, but that's not going to make much of a difference later this month, next month, in early September, as we still have 2 months to go before we reach peak waters, and we're also going to have to be concerned about ocean heat content. The OHC has not cooled down and has not lowered one bit out in the Caribbean Sea. It has lowered a little bit in the Gulf of Mexico, because this was a slower moving system, but it has not cooled down or went down one bit in the Caribbean Sea or the Lesser Antilles. We're still seeing a lot of areas of 150 to 175 OHC across a lot of these regions, and I fully expect this to continue to increase, possibly surging up to 200 OHC across a large area in the northwestern Caribbean Sea as we get more information and as we get more data as those waters warm up. How OHC is measured, remember, I say this like a broken record, is essentially measured by how warm the water is and how deep down it goes. So the warmer the water gets and the deeper it gets, and I fully expect this to happen in the next couple of months, the more ocean heat content you have. It's essentially like a gas tank for hurricanes for how much fuel it can store as a hurricane moves through it. And the more OHC there is, the more explosive the intensification can get. We all saw this with Beryl just last week, where this thing went through the Caribbean Sea and just explosively intensified even before it got there. As it got into the Lesser Antilles right there, it just took advantage of so much ocean heat content. That's the primary reason why it remained a Category 4 hurricane for so long, as it approached Jamaica and then approached the Yucatan Peninsula before finally weakening. The main reason was because it had so much OHC to work with that it could kind of counteract the shear and slow down the weakening significantly. So that's what we're paying attention to right there. Another thing we're paying attention to is the wind shear. We are seeing a bit of a pattern change with the wind shear. As we start to get into July, we start to see an increase of fluctuations of wind shear. We start to see going up and down, off and on, off and on. We start to see major oscillations of the wind shear and overall a general decline across much of the region right here. We're starting to see that right now, and as we continue to show you the shear forecast, I fully expect that trend to continue down the road. So that's what we're paying attention to with the wind shear right here. We're going to still see some fluctuations, but I would expect by late July the wind shear to finally calm down as we continue to move through the neutral phase and as the atmosphere reacts to the changes in the ENSO region. So speaking of the ENSO region, we do have some news for you. Regions 1 and 2 of the ENSO have warmed up quite a bit. We've went from a 1 degree below average a lot 2 weeks ago to right around the average right there, which is kind of sustaining this neutral phase. And I know Tristan was talking about this going back to El Nino. And Tristan, I know I'm calling you out right here, and I hate to break this to you, but it's not going to happen because regions 3 and 4 are trending downward significantly. It's been a downward trend for quite a while right here, and it's continued for quite some time. We're down to pretty much around average right here. Region 3, we can go ahead and show you. We are seeing a bit of an up trend right there, but that is starting to cool down once again. Region 4 has been on a downward trend as well right here. It's been kind of very stubborn, but it's been fighting a losing battle, and I've been telling you guys this, and now it's finally starting to cool down a little bit more. And as we can show you the sea surface temperature anomalies, a lot of that region 1 and 2 spike is this water off the coast of Colombia and Ecuador right there. That's what's causing that massive spike in sea surface temperatures across that region. It's most likely going to be temporary. If it's more permanent, that's good news. That's going to lower and strengthen the trade winds and strengthen the shear along with it and help tear some more of these systems apart. But based off what we just saw with Beryl, it is my concern that it's going to set the tone for what's coming down the road. And this is absolutely something we are going to have to pay attention to in the future, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go ahead and show you the weather nerds forecast real quickly. Let's go ahead and show you some of the ensemble runs. Here's the 0Z right here. Let's go ahead and go to 10 days out to kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at potentially in that region. Actually, let's go ahead and see if we can zoom out a little bit over here. Yeah, we are seeing a couple of signs right here for the European 10 days out right there, as my guys at Storms United were telling me. But overall, it's something to take with a massive grain of salt, especially at this time of year where the shear oscillates so much that it becomes quite volatile for that to happen. GFS ensembles are also picking up on stuff as well as too. And just for craps and giggles, let's go 300 hours out to see what crazy scenario generates. Yeah, there is a few popping up here and there with the 0Z. Let's go ahead and show you the 12Z as well. Yeah, there's a few here and there, but overall, I'm not too impressed right there. It is something to pay attention to because remember, we saw this with Beryl last time going on, and then it just really started a massively uptrend. But at the same time, there's really not much going on across much of the main development region. Just the conditions aren't fantastic at this current point in year. The Sahara air layer is kind of suppressing tropical development further west in the main development region. And yes, you do have an increase of moisture, which I do not believe is going to do anything right now, but 2 weeks from now, we could definitely see something happening, and that's why I'm paying attention to this here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. With that being said, though, let's go ahead and show you the shear forecast and the moisture forecast courtesy of the European model. I'm also going to show the GFS too, just because I want to see what they're thinking as well. Also, I want to see what crazy scenario they come up with 15 days out, so we'll have to pay attention to that right here and right there. Let's go ahead and show you the shear forecast. We'll also show you the shear anomalies as well, and we'll go ahead and pull you the 0Z European forecast right here. So here's the shear that we have. We do see a bit of an increase of shear temporarily across much of the main development region right here. That's why I'm not really expecting much to develop in the next 5 days or so. And we do see a massive surge of wind shear across the Eastern Caribbean. That's the graveyard for hurricanes right there that kind of persists throughout much of the first half of July. But the wind shear across much of the main development region really dies off starting tomorrow and starting into Thursday, today's Monday, into Wednesday and Thursday, and that kind of persists across a lot of this time. It kind of stays pretty low across throughout a lot of it, and it continues to do that. Yeah, there are peaks of shear up and there. There is going to be some oscillation, but we are seeing a massive downtrend of wind shear from where we were seeing in May and early June to now July, where the main development region starts to wake up and starts to become more primed. And yeah, you're going to also see more fluctuations in the Gulf of Mexico and Atlantic Basin, but those do downtrend significantly according to the European model right there. And yes, you will see a more up and down swing, but that's going to continue to fluctuate and trend down as we've seen with the European model at this current point in time. So we're going to have to pay attention to all of that right then and right there. Let's go ahead and show you the GFS just for the heck of it. And I want to see how this cross checks with the European. GFS is showing a similar situation down the road as well, although they do have an increase of Caribbean wind shear, and they do see an increase of wind shear in the eastern main development region right there, which, again, you're going to see with these oscillations up and down the road, but overall, we're not going to see too much activity according to these models at this current point based off the wind shear. Let's go ahead and show you the moisture component to all of this to kind of see how the Sahara air layer is going to persist. And I also want to pull up the climate models because they've come out for the month of July. I want to see how the humidity and moisture on average is persisting at this current point in time. So let's go ahead and start with the moisture component, at least for the short term, then we'll go to the long term. Sahara air layer, yeah, it's going to suppress a lot of tropical development for the next couple of weeks or so, but then you start to see a bit of a degradation of the Sahara air layer across a lot of these regions. And then you do see a lot of dry air. But another thing I'm noticing with this is you start to see this development of something new that's going to be happening, and something that's going to steer hurricanes closer to land than what we were seeing with the Azores high. This right here is the Bermuda high, ladies and gentlemen. This is the thing we've been waiting for to take a look at. What the Bermuda High does is it essentially blocks systems from pushing out to sea further to the north as long as it stays at this pressure right here, around 1030 millibars at this current point, and it pushes deeper into the Caribbean. It pushes stuff into the Atlantic Basin and brings a greater threat to the East Coast, and it brings a greater threat to some extent to the not the Lesser Antilles, but that too, but to the Gulf Coast as well. That kind of opens the door for more tropical systems to organize and develop across a lot of the Caribbean and across a lot of the main development region. So we're going to have to pay attention to that. But yeah, the Bermuda High finally starts to rear its ugly head, which is another component we are watching going down the road. I want to go ahead and, honestly, I want to see what the pressure anomalies are. That's the moisture anomalies at this current point. Let's go ahead and see the main sea level pressure anomaly. Perfect, right here. Yeah, we start to see a stronger than average, a really strong Bermuda High right here across a lot of this, which that is pretty concerning to me, to say the very least, because how long does this persist? It persists for quite a while, but a signal like that in July is kind of telling to how the tone will be set for the rest of this hurricane season, and it's going to definitely push storms further to the south, and it's definitely going to push storms closer to land, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going to have to pay attention to that, and this isn't going to happen right now, but down the road, this kind of sets the tempo for how the Bermuda High is going to go. It's going to fluctuate, of course. However, we're going to see a much stronger than average Bermuda High, apparently, at least according to the short-term models right here. Let's go ahead and show you the climate models now. Let's go ahead and show you the CANSIPs right here. It came out a week ago. We didn't do much with it, mainly because of the situation with Beryl. But here's the July forecast right here. A lot more moisture across the Caribbean Sea and a lot more moisture across the main development region thanks to the intertropical convergence zone. Not necessarily calling for tropical development. However, it is going to moisten up the atmosphere significantly, and the Sahara air layer is not going to be doing too much right there. It is going to be an average Sahara air layer, but as we get into August and we start to see the Sahara dust get pushed by the high into Europe, at that current point, what we're going to be seeing is we're going to see a lot more activity, and August is really advocating for it. It's advocating for a lot more main development region activity, a lot more Caribbean activity, potentially some more Gulf activity. Pretty much it's an all-around kind of threat for the month of August, and as we get into September, it kind of pivots more towards the Atlantic Basin, and although the Gulf could definitely see some stuff, it's not as favorable as it is in August, but the Caribbean, interestingly, does become a bit more favorable in September and October, ladies and gentlemen, which is pretty typical, but we're going to have to pay close attention to that. If we go ahead and show you this main sea level pressure anomaly for those months as well, yeah, you're definitely seeing a Bermuda High that is strong, I believe is a little weaker than average according to this right here, climatologically speaking. But you do see a very strong high pressure system start to organize in November across a lot of these regions. But you also see a lot of a lower pressure than average across the tropics right here, which is bad news if you do not want to see hurricane development down the road in August and September right there. Not sure what that's going to do to the Bermuda High, but we're going to have to pay very, very close attention to that. And the 3-month mean from this is showing a similar picture to that. And then as we get into the winter months, you start to see it higher than pressure than average. So we'll have to pay attention to that when that happens. But in the meantime, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. NMME runs same time. We're showing that as well. Similar setup to what we're seeing right here. July and August and September are going to be the main months for the Gulf of Mexico. I mean, we already had Beryl over there, but July, August, September, the most active month for tropics, in my opinion, for the Gulf will be in August, although the Caribbean won't be far behind. And once again, August is going to be an all-around kind of threat. And it is my personal opinion that based off of seeing a lot of this stuff, we're going to see a period of about 8 to 10 weeks of very active tropics right here. We're not going to see tropical systems form every day or anything like that, but we're going to see a lot of invests tagged. We're going to see a lot of development or start to organize and happen. And it's going to be a very quick period of 8 to 10 weeks from August until October, based off of what I'm seeing with all these climate models, that we're going to see a lot of this. And remember, I've been telling you guys this like a broken record. In my opinion, Beryl is a trendsetter and it is setting the tone for this hurricane season. We're going to have to pay close attention to all the threats that we're taking a look at, and I will keep you updated here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. We're closing the video out out right here. I really hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. It helps us out, helps us make more videos like these. The goal of this channel, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. Remember, we are trying to get to 10,000 subscribers before July 17th, which is my 21st birthday. So if you could hit that subscribe button, that would be very much appreciated. Also, come hang out with us at Storms United. Link to that Discord server is right over there. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.